Hello, this is Tim Dodge. I'm serving as SELA president for 2019-2020. I'm a research and instruction librarian at Auburn University. I'm here to interview past president Mike Seigler, who served as president of SELA in 2010 to 2011 to 2012, excuse me. Mike, I've got a question for you to start off with.
Sure.
Could you discuss your background in libraries?
All right, without taking you way back to the very beginning when I was a kid and loved libraries, my first real experience was as a volunteer in my high school. And went off, did whatever I did for 4 years and was teaching. Decided that I really didn't want to teach because the librarian at the school kept showing me these American library ads. And they were always for places like Hawaii, where they said, we're desperate for librarians. Went back to library school. And my first paying job was as a clerk at the Strozier Library in Florida State. Now, after I got my MLS, my first professional job was as a technical services librarian at Leesburg Public Library in Leesburg, Florida. I was there for a little while, and it was a very strange situation, very small library, and everybody higher up on the scale moved on. And so after a year and a half, I was suddenly director of this library with minimal experience. But, enjoying myself big time. It was a wonderful situation. Then I thought, I really, ever since Florida State, had wanted to go and live in Atlanta. So I moved to Atlanta and got a job as director of the Atlanta Law School Atlanta Law School Law Library. And it was a small school that doesn't exist anymore, but it gave me a lot of opportunity to improve my research. And they had more money than they knew what to do with. So, I'd see something that I thought was cool and I would go out and get it. Never had that experience after. That was just reality. But one of the weird things was they threw in free tuition for law school. So at the end of 3 years, I had passed the bar. And I went out and practiced law. Missed being a librarian. So I came back, got a job. Actually, this is probably my favorite job. I'll be a librarian in Pine Mountain, Georgia. Then moved on to Smyrna Public Library, where I worked as director for 17 years and finally retired. That's my career.
Thank you. I have another question.
Sure.
Would you describe your history with SELA, such as your first involvement, positions held, and other service?
Okay. SELA was probably my first experience with any organization larger than a state library association. I went to a meeting, which was held out of the airport hotel, and I can't remember who the president was, but extremely welcoming, very nice, and immediately appointed me to a committee. So, I'm not even sure I paid my dues, but it was really a great experience. Then I got to sit in with the committee, and the committee was made up of school librarians, academic librarians, and public librarians. So it was a great mix of experience. And I was by far the least experienced person, so I was just sucking up all the information I got. As time went by, though, I got more and more. Initially, I chaired the Constitution and Bylaws Committee. That, I'm sure, simply because of my legal background. But my real interest was intellectual freedom. So as soon as I was appointed to it, I pretty much stayed on it till I was elected vice president, president-elect. And I chaired it several times. Still have a huge interest in intellectual freedom. Things are not getting better, I gotta say.
Thank you. Very informative. I've got another question for you. Could you talk about your time as president of SELA? For instance, could you share any major accomplishments, initiatives, or challenges you faced while president?
Okay, well, our first challenge, my first challenge, was when I walked in to the meeting. My very first meeting, I had just received a letter from the Florida Library Association. They were withdrawing from SELA. And the reason they said they couldn't do it was because they couldn't afford to pay for a representative to the meetings. Now, at the time, most representatives did not receive any travel money from their state organization anyway. So we discussed it with FLA, approached them, but they decided not to stay doing it. So we were left with a problem. Some of our best and most active members were from Florida, and now they were orphan members. They didn't have a representative. So one of our challenges was to try to figure out a way to get some representation for them on the board. Now, I don't think we resolved it by the time my term ended, but we had been working on amending the Constitution and bylaws to allow states with a certain number of members to elect a representative, even if their state organization. Biggest accomplishment, I think, was moving our summer planning conference to Birmingham. Several things that happened made that, to me, important. One, SOLANet had merged with Paladin. And the main reason for having the conference in Atlanta was the great resources. At one time, we could draw on Emory's Library School, Atlanta University's Library School, and SOLANet speakers. We had more riches than we could handle. They were gone. So that was then. We had a recession that was still lingering. So travel budgets had been like with FLA, people couldn't afford to travel. So moving it to Birmingham, put it more centrally located for different groups we had. We had Arkansas on one end, we had West Virginia to the north. It was a shorter trip, and Birmingham was a little cheaper than that. I hate to admit that. Some from Atlanta. First conference, honestly, we had the dean of the University of Alabama speak, and he was excellent. And then the funny thing is, Patricia Sprinkle, who at the time was a very popular mystery writer, and she may still be, and from Smyrna, to speak, but I did not arrange for her to come. That was Gordon Baker. And when we got together at the conference, it's like we both did double takes. Um, but it went very well and has been repeated over and over. The whole idea was for us joint sponsors on a conference every year. And this was sort of something to do in between times for our members that I think made the difference there. Then another major accomplishment that I personally cannot take credit for was our going to both the Mississippi and West Virginia conferences and then SELA representatives. Turns out that in West Virginia, I had thought we had 3 programs. We had 6. And we also had a booth. They introduced me as a keynote speaker, though I honestly don't remember what they said. It went very well. We picked up a lot of members and it was a great conference, small group compared to Georgia and Florida, but active members that we just knew. We got them into SELA, they would really move us forward. Mississippi, we had 1 program, but we were listed as the presenter at the Mississippi Library Association. So that was good. And both of those resulted in us getting more members. This is not an accomplishment either. It's more it just surprised me. And Gordon arranged for us to be able to do 2 conferences online. And coming out of a small public library, an online conference is a big thing. You know, I say conference. Board meeting and executive committee. I thought, this saves us a lot of money and is easy on people. They just, like here, only need to go to wherever the point is instead of going to Charleston or Atlanta, New Orleans. What else? Those are probably big points. Now, we did do some little things like change the membership structure and eliminate certain classifications. We didn't have corporate members anymore. I think at the time we only had 1.
Thank you. As you gaze into your crystal ball, what advice do you have for SELA to remain relevant during the next 10, 25, or 50 years?
Wow. Okay. To remain relevant, they have to focus on their initial role, which is an interstate organization connecting libraries and libraries. You know, and a lot of things happen in libraries that get no publicity from it. You know, it's just, it's crazy how much duplication we have. Someone in Mississippi will come up with a great idea, go through all the issues and resolve it, and someone here will come up with the same idea without knowing about Mississippi's efforts, go through all the same issues. And redundancy is not really a good thing. It's just a hassle. We need to do that, but we also need to think about the members and the members finding positions. As libraries are changing the world, it's harder and harder for a librarian to cross state lines and find positions. So we need to focus on making sure librarians get the training they need, and don't go bankrupt doing it. Final thing is, SELA needs work to be relevant. And this is just me, but I think every library needs to work towards more Creative Commons publications. Because what you're running into is companies like Elsevier will skim the cream of the academic documents off the top, not pay people that have produced it, because they're having to produce it as part of their publisher parish requirements, and then charge the same institutions that are paying these people money to access their research and information. Southeastern Library Association do a lot because we are a multiple institution, public, academic, educational, corporate, specialist libraries, pick the thing. Every one of those that we can get, think about, let's put this in Creative Commons, can make a real difference in the overall capabilities of libraries and libraries. And I don't think I answered that real well.
Thank you very much. No, we have one final question for you. Do you have any other comments or stories about SELA that you would like to share?
Oh, SELA, there are a couple of things. People in SELA are the most dedicated of any organization I've ever belonged to. It's not like you had to chase them down. You know, if you needed information, if I sent out an email today, I would get it back today. I would not be stuck, in some cases, playing phone tag or anything. And they all did their job. You know, that was interesting. If you wanted someone committee chair, they took it seriously. I loved the years I served as chair, and can't think of a better organization than that. Only story I have is only peripherally SELA related. I went up to the West Virginia conference, and it was apparently the same time as the governor's election in West Virginia. Okay, we had the whole down. Upstairs was where they were holding the celebration for the victorious governor-elect. All right. I was good. I did not go to it. But as I go up to the parking deck, I had on a suit, a tie, naturally, and they automatically assumed I was there for the celebration. It started to usher me in. And I just had to explain to them, no, thank you, I really am flattered. And according to the people that were still at the conference, the celebration went on till, I like the phrase, the wee hours. Nothing but good memories about West Virginia.
Okay, well, thank you. We've just heard from Mike Seigler, who served as president of SELA in 2011, 2012. Again, this is Tim Dodge, 2019, 2020 president at Auburn University doing the interview. Thank you again, Mike.
You're welcome. Thank you.